the point is just the thing I want to point out is that second episode is framed in a very specific way. That hey, this is one. Okay, so let me backtrack for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Through the first two episodes, now apparently it's supposed to get worse for how we see MJ. But the first two episodes for me seemed like this was an MJ, like a MJ propaganda piece in the beginning. You know what I mean? Some little negative tidbits, but mostly it's about how Jerry Krause sucked, right?
Yeah.
And how he fucks over the Bulls, essentially submerges their chances, and how he needed Scottie, but Scottie was being a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of the picture that's being painted. Like, you know what I mean? With what MJ is saying about Scottie, it felt like an MJ propaganda session almost for a bit. What are your thoughts on Scottie? I guess you know, Vic, give me a minute on Scottie, and then Fred, why don't you expound on that a little bit too?
So yeah, so I think more to what you were saying there at the very end. It's written, or not written. Sorry, the documentary is created a lot like how his career went. It seems, where it starts off with like, man, he's fucking amazing. Why does everybody around him suck?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually being like, man, why does the guy shoot so much?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's 4 other guys on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll get to like where he passes the ball and blah, 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 trust his teammates. But yeah, so Pippen is super interesting. That first part of the episode 2, where they talk about him, he was actually, according to this book, Michael Jordan, The Life, or Michael the Life, whatever. Amazing book. Everybody should read it. It fills in a lot of gaps from the documentary and a lot of other stories. But according to the book, going into his senior year, he was 5'10", and was not recruited by anybody. Then becomes 6'2" over the summer. By the time he finishes college, he's 6'7", right? But also in the book, though, it talks about how when Scottie got there, he like was getting used to being famous and having money. And he's even quoted as saying, I didn't really work as hard the first couple of years. Right. So without someone like Michael pushing him, Scottie definitely could have flamed out, like so many other players. You know? This is still the time where they're flying commercial.
Yep.
Right? There was, when Jordan first got to the Bulls, they were practicing in a gym that like 5th grade teams would practice before them. So like it was like for Scottie, he had made it.
Yeah.
And for Michael, it was like, no, there's so much left to be done here. So without someone like Michael, if Scottie got picked by the wrong team, I think his career is completely different. Because he was still, not only did he not have the work ethic, or even have like the idea of how to win at such a high level, because he went to a Division II school and was immediately the best player. He was still growing into his body. Like you see him in those images when Oakley's literally just tossing him around. He looks so scrawny and weird. He doesn't even look human, kind of.
Yeah.
But then when you see the 97, 98 footage, he's a Greek god.
Yeah.
You know, so, and a lot of that comes from having someone there to show you this is what I'm doing. And Michael having the audacity to say, what the fuck are you doing, man? I've been here for 3 hours and you just fucking got here?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't scared of the owner. He wasn't scared of the GM.
Yeah.
He wasn't scared of any of his coaches. Like, in reality, he might have been trying to push his way out. I mean, I don't think he was, but would he have been heartbroken in the early half of the 80s to not be a Chicago Bull? I don't know. I think it would have even driven him to be even a greater player. But, yeah, I love Scottie. I do agree. I don't think it's hyperbole when they say he's the best perimeter defender.
Oh, yeah.
Because of his size, length, and quickness, to be that long, to be that tall, but also to move that fast. Like, as great as Kawhi is, he doesn't have the same kind of quickness that Scottie had.
Or length. I mean, Kawhi's long, but Scottie's length is incredible.
Or like a Draymond or any of these guys. As amazing as they are, Scottie was still better.
Yeah.
But without Scottie playing with someone like Michael, pushing them every day, he's not anything. He's not what he was.
Yeah.
And to set the record straight, he definitely was not the second best player.
Yeah. No,
97.
he wasn't. All right, Fred. Fred, what's your thoughts on Scottie?
You know, I think one of the things is, you know, watching this, you know, brings up like a lot of memories, right? So me growing up, you know, I was a big Bulls fan. Mostly it was all because of Michael Jordan, right? But the one thing I knew was Scottie, in my opinion, right? And this is what I treated the NBA like Scottie was the second best player in the NBA, right? That was my lens because I was on this train, right? So of course, like I thought, like if Jordan can do it, Pippen's gonna do it. I think what the doc really showed, you know, I think at the time, you know, because I was a kid, I wasn't really privy to a lot of the like the contract stuff. Like I didn't they did make Pippen look like, you know, kind of just like a, you know,
they took advantage of him. A kind of.
Yeah, so like he bet on himself in like the worst way possible.
Yep.
And you know, you like it just shows how different management is now compared to like they had like this old world, you know, type of thinking where like they were like the star can't run the show. We have to run the show.
Yeah.
Like Krause, like, you know, I remember hearing about Krause, but I mean, you know, he assembled a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Right. You know, during those years. And but to see the attitude, like I couldn't imagine, like for me to find out that they were just trying to blow up the team. Like get rid of a coach who has won 6 rings.
Yeah.
It would never ever happen in today's NBA, in today's NFL, in the major league. It wouldn't happen, right? I think what happened was it showed that, you know, they won the lottery with Jordan, and it completely, they thought that they had done like this great thing, you know, something. So anyway, besides that, you know, didn't really know Pippen was, you know, that whole situation.
Yeah.
You know, he got, when they showed that scene with Charles Oakley, he got really disrespected. He got shoved, and Oakley
slapped
the
shit out of him. Yeah. No,
and he took that, and he took it. And I get it, because I think when you're young and that type of hazing type of culture, you just take it because you know you're going to get someone else back, right?
Yeah.
So, and Charles Oakley, you really didn't want to mess with him. But I think from the gate, I knew Pippen, you know, in my point of view, was the second best player, even though, of course, that can be refuted. But Jordan says, like, without Pippen, this would have never happened. So I guess, you know, I didn't like his attitude is kind of off-putting, but it's a business, right? And I think I understand his attitude, but it was funny, the two different reactions between Jordan and Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson understood
for sure.
The situation, but I think also it's because he was kind of mistreated by Krause as well, right? So he could kind of relate, and he told Pippen, like, hey, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Jordan, his view might have been skewed because everybody was on it. You know, he got to do whatever. He was the golden child. Yeah. So, but you could tell he wanted to win so bad that he was like, yo, he should have gotten that surgery.
Yeah.
Right. Nowadays, I think people, players say, hey, he got to do him for his money, for his family. I've never heard anyone ever like complain about someone in regards to a contract nowadays. I think everyone kind of realizes, but it looked like Jordan cared about winning so much that he was like, he should have gotten surgery. Like, what are you doing? Worrying about money. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
He still got to win, this thing. So it was I thought it was interesting, those two different viewpoints.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up two good points. One point I want to mention is I wonder how a fan, for example, who may hate player empowerment or see such a negative in player empowerment would look at this documentary and view Scottie's situation. Are they going to say shut up and play. You signed this contract. I mean, ultimately, right, Scottie does this to himself. You know what I mean? But does that make it right? This is one of the bigger, the most famous. I think that there are some cases like this in the 80s, but really this is of someone of Scottie's caliber on a franchise of this caliber, of someone saying, essentially forcing themselves out. You know what I mean? And not getting, as we know, history goes, they don't trade him. You know what I mean? They try, and there's a lot of what ifs around that, but it never happens. The one point that you mentioned about him getting slapped essentially by Charles Oakley, though, is, and listen, a lot of this is conjecture, right? Who I can't decide whether Charles Oakley would have slapped the shit out of Jordan like that, right? But just knowing Jordan, and it's important because this really paints the picture of what Scottie is. Scottie is a very supremely talented player. At that time, though, if you replace Scottie with Hakeem and Jordan doesn't leave, they win 10 championships. I don't know, 100 championships. They win all the championships. Scottie was a great player, but this paints that picture. Scottie was a little up and down emotionally with what happens when MJ's gone, obviously sitting, refusing to go in because the play gets called for Tony, who we're going to talk about in a moment, refusing to go back into the game. Now we're having issues with contracts, him refusing to get surgery until the end. I mean, that is fucking insane. When you're talking about the greats, right? You're talking about the greats. You're talking about guys who will sacrifice anything to win. And this is even to LeBron's credit too. LeBron, the work that he puts in his body to win, right, to stay effective, I don't think any of the greats could to look at Scottie, what happens there with Krause, and relate. But they also would probably never have signed that contract. You know what I mean? And this is also another point I want to make too. I think Scottie signing that contract is a window into what science was at the time, what health science was at the time, and where the NBA was in terms of physicality. Today's NBA, you're not going to see players get hammered. I mean, Scottie has multiple dunks on multiple centers where he ends up doing a backflip and landing on the floor. You know what I mean? You would never see that in today's NBA. And on top of that, if you did, the science right now is so far advanced that you wouldn't even be concerned about an injury like that. You know what I mean? I think at that time, with how Scottie was raised, it's important to note that he viewed a shelf life on himself. You know what I mean?
But I think, on that, right? I think he just had the wrong mindset, right? He thought, what's the worst that can happen, instead of thinking the other way around. So he took this long-term deal because he wanted the guaranteed money. Like he was like, I need, and dude, he had like 100 brothers and sisters. His dad, like 2 of them were like in bed. They can't get up. Like my man was like, he had a lot on his plate. So he took the deal, which probably was because he saw the issue at hand, but he just didn't have the lens to look at it from from the money, the actual money standpoint. So he signed that deal, and management was like, well, sorry, sorry for your luck.
Imagine Jerry Krause. Come on, Jerry. Let's keep it real. Jerry Krause is sitting in that meeting. Scottie, I wouldn't take this deal. Get the fuck out of here. What is it?
Well, it was the owner. It was the owner.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not Krause. I'm sorry. Yes. What's his face? Vic, help me out here. The owner.
His name is also Jerry. His last name is Reisendor or something like that.
Yeah.
Reisendor. So, no, I can't. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. But the thing is with that, he might have, and the only reason why I could spin it, like playing devil's advocate, was that they essentially were probably saying sign a shorter deal. They would have paid him less money. Right. And then they weren't on the hook for $18 million, for the 7 years. Even, so they probably shouldn't sign it. They probably might have wanted him to sign a shorter deal. Because then, if he ended up being crap, but then he screwed himself. Like he lost out on that. So I just think that it's funny because like I mean, they essentially right before they talk about that, you know, they talk about everything that he was on the hook for, like in regards to his family and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's when it comes to those type of deals like that, that was crazy, and the fact that they just let him rock out with that deal,
Yeah.
and we're like, nah, we're not gonna like. You could see it. Was that thing was like the disrespect that I mean, my man was just like,
Yeah.
yo, like. He was getting more angry, and they weren't even willing to come back to the table. What is insane because that would never happen again.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild.
Yeah. No, and